Right, hello there everybody, welcome to the channel. Normally I do a load of Saxo or 106 related stuff if you've looked at my other videos on the channel, but I wanted to go back and do some more zinc plating. There's loads and loads of zinc plating videos on the internet out there, and I've watched a few of them. Some of them are great, some not so great obviously, but you know, everyone's got their own take on it. And I've already done a zinc plating special when I did my project one, but that was some time ago and I've learned quite a bit since then. So I wanted to retouch on it, show you in a little bit more detail what it is that I've done, what my setup looks like in my garage, and essentially how you can go from, you know, nasty looking bolts like this to nice looking bolts like that. So it's obviously a bit of a process, you need to spend some money, but it gives you the flexibility essentially to do this stuff and get your bolts and whatever hardware that you want to plate looking nice whenever you need them. Now the biggest problem I've got when I've done my car stuff is shipping this stuff out to the plater, you know, and for me there's a local one over in Northampton, so it's a good sort of 35-40 minutes away, is you know, they tend to want big batches of stuff, and that means inevitably sending over a big bucket of bolts, and you know, you don't know whether you're going to get them all back. You've got to then sort them all out, find out where every nut and bolt and washer and everything like that went all over again. Whereas if you just got to buy your own kit type setup, which you can see just behind me here, essentially you can do as and when you need. You can do as much or as little as you like. So you know, you've come to put a bracket on, you've got 2 bolts to do, just do 2 bolts, and it really does work. The process is good. It's not cheap, I'd say, but if you've got a whole project to do, or loads and loads of bolts to do, or nuts to do, then I'd say it probably does work out in your favour to invest in the kit. I think my setup maybe is about £300, I think, all in. Maybe a fraction more, perhaps, upon a time, depending on what sort of current controller and things like that you go for. But yeah, we'll talk about all of this stuff. I'm going to show you, you know, the setup, all the chemicals, the mixing, you know, how to plate something. You know, we're going to go through and I'll show you how exactly I plate this bolt. And then also like a slightly different alternative method using a little basket with mixed results on that one. But anyway, I thought I'd do this separate to my normal car stuff because it's an interesting topic, and I get a lot of people asking me how to do it and what they need. Excuse me. So yeah, it's worth maybe just focusing on that one more time, and I'm going to separate it from the car stuff, so to speak. So anyway, without any more delay and enough chat, I'm going to show you the setup. Right, so here we are, 5 11-litre tanks. I've gone for rectangles just so I can plate things of different shapes and sizes. I think it's a little bit easier to do with the rectangles rather than the circular ones that you get in the kit. So I'll just talk you through essentially what we've got here. So I filled these up with 10 litres of water each. They're all identical. Each one has got a temperature strip on the front, and each one has got a 25 watt fish tank heater inside. That's just turned up maximum at the moment to get the temperature in there. So they're slowly warming up. They're at about 20 degrees at the moment. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through and I'll show you what chemicals we're putting in each one to make up each tank. I'll show you everything that we put into the tank for plating, including making up the anodes and how we hook all those together, and with the power supply. So what we'll do is we'll cut straight now to mixing the first tank. Right, so the first thing to go in, this is for the degreaser tank, so step number 1. This is an alkaline cleaner and it's 250 grams, and that's all going to go into a 10 litre tank. Cool, we'll give it a good stir. Okay, so on to the second tank. So this is the dry acid salts, which creates the tank what we call the pickle. So it is an acid, as it says. And essentially, if you've got something that's slightly rusty, it would remove that rust and it'll etch the surface ready for the plating stage. So 250 grams of this goes into the 10 litre tank as well. And we are washing the spoon that we're using between the phases, so we're not getting any cross contamination. Okay, so this is the plating tank, and before we put any chemicals into here, it needs proper setup. So same as all the other tank, it's got a heater in there, and you'll notice this clear tube, which I've essentially siliconed to the bottom of the tank. Now that is an agitator, so that will create bubbles. Let's do a little demo. So essentially to just move the water and move the zinc around the tank to agitate the part. So we'll leave that off there for now. We don't need that on until we're actually plating something. So obviously I've got a fish tanker, like aquarium pump, just sat behind. It was the smallest, cheapest one that I could find. I think it was about £12 off Amazon. Excuse me. And then in the tank then I've got 4 zinc anodes. So these will be on the positive side, and they are hooked up with some titanium wire, which essentially goes down through here for each one, and then is hooked up to this copper loop that you see here, and obviously off to my power supply through the positive side. And the part that I put on top will be negative, so I will have this copper tube here, and I will then connect up anything obviously from there with some more copper wire and to my negative supply. So that's essentially the tank made up. So it's heated, agitated, and has the anodes all hooked up. They're all connected together essentially. So now we will mix some chemicals in, and I'll talk about what they are. Right, so what I've done here is that we've taken some of the level of the water out, because obviously all of these chemicals are going to make it probably overflow a little bit, and we'll top it up afterwards. So the first thing to go in is ammonium chloride. Now we need 2 of these, because we're making up a 10 litre tank. We need 900 grams, so we've actually got 2 of these bags. So first thing is to get all of this mixed in. Okay, so now the first stage of the ammonium chloride is in. Obviously we need to mix it a little bit more. So second stage is to mix in the zinc chloride. So this is 450 grams for a 10 litre tank. So we've got 2 of these 225 gram bags. Right, so the next stage is to mix in the starter, AZW starter. So this is 175ml. We need 2 of these for our 10 litre tank, so we'll mix that in now. Okay, final stage then is to mix in the brightener. So we need 20 mils of this for our 10 litre tank. So this is actually a little bottle that I had left over from my last kit, and we've got some more, but we're going to use up the old one and then use up the new one as well. So we'll get that in now. Got a little 5mm syringe here so we can measure it properly. You can get these if you've got kids and they've got the medicine bottles that they have. These are ideal because they're 5mm size. So that's one, so 4 of those to go. Right, so this is all mixed in now, but we are just below our 10 litre line. I'm glad we did take it out, otherwise we probably would have overflowed. So it's worth saying as well that the warmer these tanks are, the easier everything will dissolve, so it's worth getting them up to temperature. This is just boiling water, straight out the kettle. There we go, we're up to our 10 litre mark there. So we'll carry on stirring until everything's mixed in. Okay, so on to the fourth tank now. So this is the nitric acid stage, and we have to dilute this. You need 100 ml of this for our 10 litre tank, and this is a 100 ml bottle, so we're going to lob in all of that stuff in there, and then obviously give it a good mix. Okay, and then onto the final tank then, so that's the yellow passivate. Now you don't have to do yellow passivate, the kit also comes with clear, but the demand is clearly for the nice gold bits, so you get stuff that looks like this. So yeah, this is a 200 ml bottle, and we need all of that for our 10 litre tank here, so drop that in. Okay, so all the tanks now are set up, and we're going to keep them on the heaters, obviously keep them heated the whole time. It is a relatively chilly day today, so we are fighting the elements. When I ran the 5 litre kit before, it was much easier to keep them up to temperature. Maybe I probably would have recommended 50 watt heaters. But anyway, we're going to go through and show a demo. So I've got this bolt here, so I don't need this bolt, I can't even remember what it was from. But you can see it looks pretty nasty. It was obviously plated in the past. See parts of it where it was protected. So the first step really is obviously to clean it up and get rid of all the grease off it, get rid of any rust off of it and all that kind of stuff. And as you know, I've got a bead blaster, so I'm going to chuck it through the blaster, and then I will pop it on the wire wheel there to get it all polished up. So essentially the cleaner you can get it and the higher the polish you can get from the bolt, or whatever it is that you're doing, the better the result will be at the end. So just give me 2 minutes and I will blast this. Right, so that's been shot blasted, nothing more. You can see it looks pretty dull, all the rust has gone. And get it in focus, there we go. So yeah, all the rust has gone, but you can see the threads are still quite dirty. And obviously that's not going to work for plating. So I'll stick it on the wire wheel now and give it a good clean up, and then I'll show you what it looks like after that. Okay, so that's been on the wire wheel. You can see it's now all nice and shiny. It's actually a pretty good bolt to start with, to be honest, because the finish is quite good. So essentially, if you're plating something that is all pitted and horrible, it will still come out pitted and horrible. It will just be plated. So essentially, this is a good example because it's a nice finish already, and it should come out quite nice. So yeah, right, next we'll go on to prepping this ready to go in the tanks. Right, so I've got this hooked up now. You can see how I've wrapped the bolt here with a couple of bits of copper wire. Just ordered that stuff on Amazon. I think it's 1mm size, nice and flexible, but strong enough to be able to hold something reasonably heavy. Yeah, I bought some copper pipe from Wix and just cut it in half. Obviously that gives you plenty of options to redo it. So the first stage really is going to be going into the degreaser. So this is all about getting rid of all of the fingerprints and everything that I've put on it. It will do things like light oils, but if something's really heavily, greasy and horrible, then you're probably going to want to try and clean it by hand beforehand. So yeah, and temperature is your friend with all of these. So, but here we really want that as hot as possible. So right now we're just hovering on 18 to 20 degrees, and obviously that's a result of the temperature today. So, but yeah, we'll put that in there, and we want to leave that for as long as possible, really. And obviously to get rid of all those oils on there. So once we're given that a good sort of 10 minutes or so, then we'll drag it out and we'll go to the next stage. Right, that's been in for a good 5-10 minutes or so. So now the next thing is to get rid of all of the degrease on here. So we need to give this a good wash off. We've got a dip tank here. It's essentially just clean water. Obviously we don't want to contaminate the next tank, so we need to wash this off. The other thing to look out for as well, it's difficult to see on a bolt, but essentially if you've still got grease and dirt on there, oils as such, then it will sit on there in beads, you know, like you do when you polish your car. And obviously that means it probably needs longer in there, but this is obviously a very clean bolt in the first place, and that's been in there long enough. So I'll give this a rinse in the rinse tank. Just got a bucket of water on the floor, and get rid of any degreaser that's on there. Okay, so stage 2, this is the acid pickle. It's to get rid of any oxides on the surface, any rust. Obviously because this bolt's been bead blasted and been on the wire wheel, it's obviously very clean already, so it won't need very long in here. We're actually going to go for about 10 to 15 seconds. But if you've got something that's pretty bad, then go for longer. And you'll see it start to fizz up. Okay, so we're at 10 seconds there, a little bit longer. Okay, that's 15 seconds. So we'll go straight into the rinse tank, same as before. Okay, so that's been through and had a rinse, so that's now ready to go into the plating tank. We'll put that across here. So that's now submerged. So as I said before, we've got 4 anodes here. Obviously because we're running a slightly bigger tank than previously, we're running all 4 anodes. Previously we're just running 2. So I've got my positive power supply hooked up here to the anodes, and we're going to make this, the cathode, be negative. So now it's just a question of applying some voltage and some current. Now it's only a bolt, and it's not particularly large, so it's probably not going to need much more than maybe an amp, if that. So let me just wind this on. In fact, let me just show you. Okay, so we're at an amp there now. Okay, now, key thing to see here, in the tank itself, you'll actually see the bolt start to fizz. So let me just change the camera and I'll show you that a little bit. Okay, we can just see some fizzing there on the surface, just coming up. So what we'll do to help it along is we'll put the agitator, put the fish tank pump on to keep things moving. And we'll come back in probably about 15 minutes, I think. We'll leave it in there for a good period of time. Okay, so that's in there now. We're going to leave it in there. So the current settings that we're running, they're not pulled out of thin air. Essentially, you're looking at what the surface area is for a bolt, or whatever part it is you're doing. Now there is a calculation to work that out. It's about 30 to 40 amps per square foot. Now obviously that bolt is not a square foot, nowhere near. Hence why we're down at about an amp. So there's other things to be careful of. If you plate too fast, you can get a really grainy deposits on there, and it's almost sandy when it finishes, and you'll notice that when you pull it out. So obviously if you're running too much current, essentially. If you run too little current, it can be a bit dull and grey. So essentially you need the Goldilocks scenario of having it just right. The other thing to be wary of, if you want to take it out to have a look to see how it's getting on, make sure you disconnect the power supply, because otherwise when you take it out, essentially you'll get burning on the bottom of whatever it is you're plating, because you're passing all of that current through the very tiny tip of the part, so you'll get black deposits on there as well. So if you are going to take it out and have a look, then just disconnect the power supply. Right, so that has been in there for the amount of time we need it to, between 10 and 15 minutes. So first step is obviously remove the power supply. We don't need that on anymore. Just turn that off. And then turn off the agitator. Don't need that on anymore. And then we'll lift this out. So same again, straight into the dip tank to rinse it off. You can see it looks really nice and bright and shiny. Just rinsing it off down here. And the next stage is into the nitric acid here. So this is about 10 to 15 seconds again. And this is where you should see it really brighten up. Any sort of cloudiness on there will disappear hopefully, and it should become nice and bright. So we'll just give that another few seconds. Okay, so that's 15. So again, straight out of there into the dip tank, and then finally we're on to passivation. So in here, 10 to 15 seconds again. Now the key is to keep it moving. And again, these last two stages, both the tanks are up to as hot as possible, 25-30 degrees. Okay, that's about 10 to 13 seconds, I say. So we'll take that out, give it a rinse off. Right, critical phase now is to get this dry. So we're going to blow it with an air line from a distance, and then we're going to use a heat gun. Okay, that's now complete. I don't want to touch it just yet, but you can see how good that looks compared to what it was at the beginning. So the key thing now is just to leave that to sit and harden, preferably overnight, but yeah, it should be okay. So that's that zinc plated. Job's a good one. Right, so as you saw, we did everything using a single bar across there, and obviously that's got its limitations in terms of how much you can do at once. Obviously, you probably, by the time you've got 3 or 4 bolts on there, you're going to be fairly limited. So there are other ways to do that, and it's a bit of an experiment. I've not tried it before, so I wanted to try and do this sort of basket method. So essentially, I've got an old takeaway container that's got lots and lots of holes drilled in the bottom to allow all the fluid to go through, and essentially access holes in the side for the plating to be able to get to all the bolts, and it's all weaved together. Probably took me about an hour to make this, but yeah, so I wanted to try and do it. Essentially, you know, when you've got lots and lots of little nuts and bolts to do, yeah, it can be a bit of a pain in the bum trying to get them all wired up properly. So what I've got is a load of nuts and bolts here that, again, I don't need these are all just sort of spares. But yeah, I've probably got about, I don't know, probably 15 items in there maybe now. So we'll go through exactly the same process and see if we can plate these like that. So I won't talk through any of this, I'll just sort of show you the highlights essentially, because the process is identical. But it'd be interesting to see if it works, because it might speed you up a little bit.
Okay, start you up, 7 o'clock.
Right, so right, so as you've seen, the basket's now in the plating solution. Now obviously we're going to need a lot more current than as if you were doing a typical you know, set of like 4 or 5 washers, but also we're obviously plating all the copper wire, the basket as well, so that's also going to take up some of the current and obviously attract some of the zinc to it as well, so we're going to have to compensate for that. What we're also going to need to do is keep this moving a bit more. We're going to have to take it out and give it a little bit of a shake. So yeah, we'll give it a go, and definitely run with the agitation with the bubbles on. So first of all, we'll give it some power. Right, so we're at 4 amps there, and we'll see how that goes. We'll stick the bubbles on. We'll leave that for a little bit, and obviously after a few minutes we're going to take that out, give it a good move around, keep it moving way more often than what we would do for just doing a couple of bolts. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on the voltage and the current as well. We might need to increase that a little bit. 15 seconds on there.
Go. That's it, good enough. Right. Okay. Done.
Right, the final results of that. Pretty mixed. Some of the washers have come out really nicely, but some of them are a bit patchy in places. So yeah, a little bit of perfecting to do on with the basket. I think we probably need to move them around a little bit more. And I think probably these spots are where they're in contact with the cage, the wires running through that basket. But the bolts have come out nice. I think because obviously there's less of those in contact and they're not quite so flat. The bolts have come out really well. The nuts a bit average. Thankfully I don't need any of these parts, they're all just spare bits. But anyway, it was worth trying, and something you can give a go yourself if you feel the urge to do more bits at once. But yeah, mixed results. Anyway, that's it for now. Okay then, thank you everybody for watching. I hope that was informative, and yeah, you got something from it. I'll say mixed results with the little basket method there. I'm sure that perhaps turning things over a bit more, moving things around in the basket. So I think I moved things maybe twice. So I think maybe taking it out, moving it 3, 4, 5 times would probably be beneficial. Bit more to expand on that one, but certainly a method, you know, that you could explore, and I will explore, just to sort of up the capacity. Because if you think about from start to end, each run maybe takes 20 minutes perhaps, you know, and then obviously a little bit more if you've got the cleaning stuff to do beforehand. So obviously it's very, very time consuming, which is great. You know, I love spending time in the garage. So I don't mind that it takes a little bit of time, and it's nice to be able to do this stuff and learn it for yourself. But anyway, hopefully it was informative, and yeah, if you've got any comments, any suggestions, any ideas, things that you think I'm doing wrong, then obviously please do drop in the comments. If you want to see some more car project stuff, then obviously check out my other videos, and yeah, hit the subscribe button. That always helps. Thanks again, see you soon.